Here's your wrestling news for July 13th, 2022, and we're kicking off today with NXT 2.0, as last night's edition of the paint-splattered brand saw a huge heel turn take place. Before the show, Roxanne Perez was attacked in the parking lot, but still competed for the NXT Women's Championship against Mandy Rose in the main event. Perez didn't win the title, but only after she was betrayed by her best friend and tag partner Cora Jade, but one spot in her heel turn didn't go according to plan. During her heel turn, Jade tried to attack Perez with her signature skateboard, but that broke before she could land the attack. Fans were quick to call out the botch and shared clips and images on social media, as the board didn't want Jade to betray her partner. Poor skateboard quality aside, Jade and Perez are still the NXT Women's Tag Team Champions, but the future does not look good for the NXT Women's Tag Division. This week on Raw saw the phenomenal one AJ Styles take on The Miz and Ciampa in a handicap match before Elias's brother Ezekiel decided to join in. However, the finish of the match left many fans completely baffled. AJ Styles had Miz dead to rights in the calf crusher. Ciampa came in to make the save. The resulting finish was as chaotic as it was confusing. When Ciampa entered the ring to break up a submission, the referee called for a disqualification. The announcers then wondered why it was a DQ. On the latest Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer explained that WWE has a secret rule for tag team matches. There's a secret rule in WWE that in a tag match, you only get one save, and this was the second save, so therefore it's a DQ. The other thing is, there's guys from outside the ring, illegal guys that do 2-on-1s constantly, so it's like that idea that the illegal man can't do anything physical to the legal man or it's a DQ, that's ridiculous. The same type of save situation happens all the time in WWE. Rarely, if ever, does the referee disqualify someone for it. This week, it's the way they decided to go. The confusing finish appears to be due to a secret WWE rule that doesn't get pulled out very often. The ending didn't make sense to many fans. It's hard to tell what WWE's logic behind the finish was, but it'll be interesting to see if there is any follow-up in the coming weeks. At a recent WWE live event, Natalya challenged for the SmackDown Women's Championship in a match that also featured both current champ Liv Morgan and former champ Ronda Rousey. Natalya was unsuccessful in capturing the title, but after taking the pin, she immediately stood up and spoke to Morgan. Many have said that the usually professional Queen of Hearts broke character by doing so, and it's not just some fans who think she acted wrongly. On Wrestling Observer Radio, it was said that there is heat on Natalya for her actions, and that Liv Morgan may also have heat for just being involved with what transpired. For what it's worth, it's reported that Natalya and Morgan do not have heat with each other, and that the pair are very close behind the scenes. In a now-deleted tweet, Natalya said she was breaking character again and revealed that she had said thank you to Morgan after the match, a definite kayfabe-shattering moment for the Canadian heel. As for Morgan, her reign as SmackDown Women's Champion was a long time coming, and it's been just over a week since she won the gold, but this incident is the last thing Morgan needs right now. During this week's Raw, Dolph Ziggler returned to the red brand and inserted himself in the main event picture. During a match pitting Theory and Seth Rollins against Bobby Lashley and Riddle, Ziggler cost the heels the match, allowing Riddle to hit the RKO for the pin and superkicked Theory for good measure. On Wrestling Observer Radio, it was explained that Theory and Ziggler have been working the house shows together, and that the plan is for the veteran Dolph to make Theory look better in the long run. The role of Ziggler is to make Theory a better wrestler, and there's few names who can do that better than the established WWE veteran and two-time former World Heavyweight Champion. WWE believes Theory will be one of their next big stars, even if he has been taking a lot of losses as of late, but as long as he holds the Money in the Bank contract, the future looks bright for the cocky young superstar. Now, Chris Jericho is a veteran of professional wrestling, and for much of his career, he worked as part of WWE. It was in WWE that Jericho became the first ever Undisputed Champion, a record 9-time Intercontinental Champion, and a Grand Slam Champion, but those days are behind Y2J. Since 2019, Jericho has worked with AEW and has never shied away from taking shots at WWE during this tenure working for Tony Khan. Now, though, Jericho may be prepared to take back some of the harsher things he's had to say about WWE, as he's teased a return to the company. On Twitter, Jericho shared an article from WrestleTracker, and while Chris didn't say anything himself, the article was called 5 Reasons We Will See Chris Jericho in WWE Someday. It's an interesting tease by Jericho, the first ever AEW World Champion, and after losing Cody Rhodes this past February, the last thing Tony Khan will want is to lose Jericho as well. With that said, you can never say never in pro wrestling, and while Chris has every reason to be happy in AEW, this tweet could be a sign of his contract expiring and something big to come. We've got more news from NXT 2.0 now, as the brand is set to lose one of its most decorated performers. Earlier this month, it was reported that Io Shirai had not signed a new deal with the company, and it looks like she has no plans to. On Wrestling Observer Radio, it was reported that Shirai has one foot out of the door and that her current deal is set to expire in August. Shirai has reportedly been telling people that she plans on returning to her native Japan and wishes to spend more time with her family. This is a similar situation to Kairi Sane in 2020, but unlike the Pirate Princess, Shirai is not expected to stay under any WWE ambassadorial role in Japan, something Kairi did for some time before fully parting ways with WWE. It's worth mentioning that Shirai has tweeted since reports of her departure came out with a simple tweet that reads "rumors" and a vomiting emoji. Shirai hasn't been seen since WrestleMania 38 weekend, where she challenged for the NXT Women's Championship and NXT Stand and Deliver, and not only did she fail to regain the title, but also suffered a lower leg injury, which resulted in her wearing a protective boot. A former NXT Women's and NXT Women's Tag Team Champion, Shirai has done virtually everything there is for her in the paint-splattered brand, and short of something major happening very soon, it looks very likely that she could be gone from WWE very soon. More from Chris Jericho now, as in AEW, the former world champion has had plenty of confrontations with Eddie Kingston, but one segment as of recent did not go down well with fans. As seen on last week's episode of AEW Dynamite, the Jericho Appreciation Society was featured in a parking lot segment where Jericho instructed Ty Conti to attack Ruby Soho. This was preceded by Eddie Kingston cutting a promo in the ring, and on his podcast, Jim Cornette blasted the whole thing for looking phony. Let Eddie Kingston talk about the guy for 30 seconds, 40 seconds, and then he pops up on the screen, then it's not just so obvious that the director was waiting to patch that video in until the first mention of Chris Jericho's name. It just comes off phony. They couldn't even play the music cue that was worked out ahead of time that quick in the first segment. Jericho didn't appear on the screen until Kingston brought him up as part of his promo, and either Chris has a member of the production team in the JAS, or this segment was indeed a bit phony looking. Jericho and his society have been feuding with the Blackpool Combat Club for some time now, and we'll have to see if lessons are learned after last week's phony-looking segment. Now, Vince McMahon made headlines last month when an article came out about him alleging that he had paid $3 million to a departing employee to keep quiet about an alleged affair. Last week, it was reported that McMahon was set to travel to Canada to meet up with John Cena, but those plans have undergone changes. The trip was reported to be something to do with Cena, but Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful reports that the trip was rescheduled, and rather than happening last weekend, will now happen this weekend instead. Sapp added that while Cena does spend quite a lot of time in Canada these days filming Peacemaker, that the latest season isn't set to film for some time, so whatever McMahon is doing in Canada this week won't involve Big Match John. The reason for Vince McMahon's trip has not been indicated either, but we do know that the chairman has a lot on his mind right now. Just recently, 3 more women came forward to the Wall Street Journal with solid proof that McMahon had acted inappropriately with employees, and you can find out more about that by clicking on the button on the screen. Whatever McMahon does next, something seems to be drawing him to Canada, but we'll just have to wait to see what exactly has the ex-chairman's attention. And we're ending today with more news from the Vince McMahon scandal now, as the chairman is facing several accusations that have had the world talking. Even with the investigation into McMahon not yet concluded, many fans have called on WWE to remove him from the company, but the world of business isn't so quick to jump the gun. As explained on Wrestling Observer Radio, Vince is going nowhere until the investigation is over, and may not even go if the results don't go in his favor. It was also explained that WWE sponsors are at this point fully aware of the allegations against McMahon, but none of the sponsors nor the TV stations have wanted to get away from WWE due to the ex-chairman. It should come as no surprise that the sponsors aren't moving, but the company has been publicly traded for decades now, and with all the scandals the company has faced, WWE has always remained profitable. Perhaps things will change if McMahon is found to have done the things he is accused of doing, but for the time being, WWE sponsors aren't being scared away by the accusations against the ex-CEO. Well guys, that's our news for today. Please share your comments below. Also hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon to receive all notifications. And as always, thanks for watching.